Yes.
So, okay, sir. Now it is you and Aves, and I hope that you
Just,
are.
just
Yeah.
give me,
I'm making I'm making you a host now. Oh, I'm making you host, so you can also make a co-host to Aves.
yeah, go ahead and do it, please.
Okay, so you are, sir, host now, and for the safe side, maybe you are disconnect from this meeting. So make Aves co-host, and Aves, you would be you would become automatically host whenever Sarzia disconnect in any case. So that's it. So okay, over to Sarzia. Sir, if you have any problem, you can call me. So
Okay.
maybe
No problem.
in next 30 minutes, I would be back and join your session. I'm not leaving the session. Just mic and camera is off. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Wes, I'm making you co-host.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Okay. Now let's start the discussion. What we have learned so far, when we started this course, Wes, what we are doing is basically how to become an API developer. It's a very simple thing, but it's not that simple. It used to be a very simple thing. First, and by the end of this course, you and I and Anis and all the teachers will at least be world-class API developers, at least. And some of the students who are doing hard work.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So therefore, first of all, we learned about the API economy, which basically says why the focus on APIs, which basically says that in the future, the focus will be on developing apps, specialized apps. There will be some developers who will be specializing in app developers, but most of the developers will be focusing on developing APIs. What they will doing is basically selling the subscription through these APIs. These APIs will use AI technology, IoT technology, and crypto technologies, and a host of other quantum computing, a host of other technologies. Now, these APIs will be used by the application developers. And we call this API economy because there is an exchange of value between developers. Some people are selling the APIs and other people are using the APIs, as used to be the case with apps. Then we learned, so therefore we talked about the API economy, then we talked about the token economy, because later on, we will tell you how, when you are an API developer, how you can create a token for your project, sell it in the market, and raise funds for your applications. So therefore, by the end of this course, OS, you will not be only be a good API developer, but a good fundraiser for creating funds, for generating funds for your projects.
Exactly, sir. Exactly. I agree, because for the student and for the sake of the discussion, it's just not about the creating the projects or API or a startup. You need the funds. You need to raise the funds to keep them alive, so you can do a better things with your startup, and it will be better for all of you and the developers who are creating the APIs.
So therefore, first we talked about the API economy, then we talked about the token economy, and we are going to, of course, go into much detail in the token economy in the third part of the course. But right now, then we moved over to the cloud. because the APIs are going to be developed on a particular cloud platform. The infrastructure will be provided by the cloud providers. So there are 3 cloud providers, of course, which are more famous and we have a major market share. One is AWS, the second one is Azure, and the third one is Google Cloud. Because 40–50% of the market share is taken by AWS, and AWS started this and has a major market share in the industry. So therefore, we adopted AWS. Then there is another trend in cloud computing, which is infrastructure as code, that you don't go to the UI and do all the changes in the UI and AWS website. Professional developers basically write code, write templates. So therefore, there is a new tool for it, which is called Cdk Cloud Development Kit. We are using Cdk to basically program cloud services. If you think about it, Cdk is nothing except calling the AWS APIs. If you think about it, whole API infrastructure is basically access. They have given access to us developers through Cdk and other tools, which is CloudFormation and other tools, basically to call those APIs.
Now when we are just calling the services like Lambda functions or anything else, we are just calling it the API, and it just give it back the endpoint, and we have to just our stuff on that.
And the thing is, even from the UI, if you go to the AWS UI, basically they are also calling the APIs. So therefore, both of us are calling the APIs. You call it from the CDK or you call it from the UI. The only good thing about CDK is that it will be written in TypeScript or other programming language, and you can, it is a repeatable process. You don't have to remember things. Otherwise, in UI, I forget things and the accuracy is not there. Now, what we did was, we started how to create a using CDK, how to deploy a Lambda function, how to deploy a DynamoDB. Then we moved over to Postman. And then we learned how to test an API using Postman. Right now, we are just focusing on the REST APIs. So therefore, now today is your difficult day, which is not difficult for you, but if I was, it was, what you are going to do is, our project number 4 basically asks you to develop an API, which is a simple books API, which we tested last week, which was developed by somebody else. This week, Ovaz is going to develop it, and then we are going to deploy it, and then we are going to test it using Postman. Ovaz, why don't you start basically sharing your screen? Now, the thing is, we are not going to share the code. Ovaz is going to keep the code, because what we don't want you to just clone the repository and that's it. But Ovaz is going to tell you, and I'm going to ask questions like an Ovaz, which I am. Ask questions, and of course, you will ask questions. How did you develop it? What the points? And you are going to develop this thing at home. So therefore, you will, by the end of this class, hopefully, you will be able to develop a full-fledged API and test it using Postman, on first deploy it on AWS and then test it on what do you call Postman?
Postman. Actually, sir, I want to add one thing is there. I've just created the project already. So should I just share my screen and show the architecture, that how I just create all the things?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So screen is visible now?
Yes, we have, now we can see the Bengal tiger or whatever, panther.
Okay, so guys, what you have to do is simply, as you just developing your architecture, you have to choose the folder where you want to implement your all the stuff related to the RESTful API. After that, selecting your folder, open the VS Code and just type the CDK in it and select the language, type the script. Okay. After you hit that command, what does the CDK do is create that whole structure for you, so you do not have to confuse or create it by yourself. So the architecture will be made by the CDK in itself. Okay, the voice is clear, I think. I'm
Yes.
just being confirmed.
Wes, why don't you first share what APIs, share the page of the APIs we are developing so that everybody knows from where we are.
Yes, sure, sir. Actually, in the last class, what we have do is we have just test this RESTful API on the Postman and see this, that how the REST API will work and what is endpoint, how to access the endpoint, and how to test them on the Postman. We also discuss about the different endpoint which we have just tested, like the book endpoint. What does the book do? And we have just already read about the methods we have using the get method, post method. So it's just like that. In the last class, we have just see that how we can get all the books, how we can get a specific book with the ID, how we can do orders, and after that, how we can update our order and like that delete our order. So this is the basic root function in which we are creating, reading, updating, and deleting. So we will do the same stuff with our AWS, and the architecture will be the same. And the query, as I just show you, we will define our query just like that in the JSON format in the Postman. So now come back to the point on the CDK, how we architecture that. There is no new things, and there is nothing rocket science in that. The difference between is that when you want to create a API, the REST API, you have to use the API gateway. If you remember, we use AppSync for the GraphQL. So AppSync will use for the GraphQL API. And if you want to create a HTTP post request, which means if you want to create a RESTful API, you have to use the API gateway library from the AWS. So first, what you have to do, as we are doing already, you have to import all this library, which I am importing here. In this, what we are going to do is we are importing the CDK, and from the AWS API gateway, what we are going to do is importing that and destructure those methods is the iResource, Lambda integration, mock integration, and the pass-through behavior and the REST API. You will later in the code, you will know what does all things do. And after that, we have just importing the Lambda as we do always. And after that, we are importing the DynamoDB because we want to save our data in the DynamoDB. So here you.
Wes, somebody is requesting that please zoom the font or increase the font. They are having difficulty looking.
Yeah. So does it better now?
A little bit more.
A little bit more. Okay.
Yes, and you can decrease the left side of the screen. Yes, so that yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now in our constructor, what we are going to do? We are going to define our DynamoDB. In this DynamoDB, what we are saying that our DynamoDB name is books. And in this book, we have a partition key, which name is book ID. And the type of the partition key is string. This is the we have already discussing in the previous class. After that, we have create the Lambda. Now there is something you have to know what there is a difference between the Lambda we have created in the GraphQL and here we are creating. There is a difference, a little bit difference, nothing else. We create our Lambda function here. We define the name here. We define the runtime and the handler. What is the handler? We are defining that in our Lambda function, in our Lambda folder, go in the file of get all books, and there you find a one handler. Okay. After that, we are giving the memory size, and in this environment, I'm giving the primary key, which is book ID, which I've just enter here, and the DynamoDB table name. Now, so what there is a difference is this: in our GraphQL, we have just create one Lambda, and that Lambda is calling the main function in the Lambda function in the Lambda folder. And after that, in that man handler, we have defined the use cases, switch cases, in this switch cases, we have just calling the add to do, update to do Lambda function from there. Because if you remember in our architecture of the GraphQL architecture, architecture, we have created a resolver. In this resolver, we have passed the type of the resolver, which is, for example, query. And after that, we have passed the field of the resolver. In this field, I name the query name. For example, get all book in the field name. So here we are accessing the endpoint. So we have to create a specific and particular Lambda for every endpoint. Okay. So for that, what we have do? We have named the get all Lambda, the get one Lambda. As you see the name of the Lambda, you will got the point what the Lambda is going to do. In the get one Lambda, it's getting the get one book. What is the get one books? It is just a Lambda function we have just created in the Lambda folder. In this Lambda folder, we have a file of get one book, and all the code is goes there, and I will show you. After that, we are creating add book Lambda, update book Lambda, and delete book Lambda. This is all the Lambda which we perform our CRUD operations when the endpoint will hit on that Lambda. Okay. After all that, what we do is grant the permission to all our Lambda so they can save our data in our DynamoDB, which we have just defined in the initial steps. Okay. Now the Lambda is created and DynamoDB have the access all the Lambda so they can save your data in your DynamoDB table. Okay. Now the API work will start from here. The Lambda integration is coming from the API gateway we have just import here. Now in this Lambda integration, what I'm going to say is that take the Lambda integration and get the Lambda which we have just defined here. So it integrate your Lambda with RESTful API. In the previous, what we are doing is integrate our Lambda with AppSync. Okay. Here we will do the same thing, but with the Lambda integration, which we have just defined like that. After that, we have just give all our Lambda names, functions, and the Lambda integration. Now, here we are defining our API. We are saying that we have an API. What API we are defining? We are defining the REST API. In the REST API, what is the name of the REST API? It will be the simple books. Okay. Now,
Just a second. Well,
yes, sir.
I did not fully understand the integration part. Why is it required? What is it doing?
The Lambda integration part here.
Yes.
So as I just explained that in our CDK code where we are deploying our Lambda with GraphQL, when we are working our GraphQL API, we have to link that Lambda with our AppSync.
Yes.
So when we click on the function, a specific function, so our AppSync will know that which Lambda we have to trigger. So now there is in the REST API, we have the endpoints. So just like that, we are giving the permission to our API, our REST API, to integrate those Lambda. So our REST API should know that when the specific endpoint will hit, what Lambda should I call on the backend side.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question about the endpoint. Sir, you said that REST API have a single endpoint, a different endpoint for all the queries. But an endpoint, for example, book API, I have a service subscription services like $10 per month, even for the different clients. But when we provide the API for the client that pay me $10, but they share the API other person, what can I do?
So I didn't get your point. What exactly what you want?
I didn't understand. Please repeat it, Lal.
Sir, I'm trying to say that if a website have the subscription model for the clients like $10 per month and share the API endpoint with client.
I now understand it. The thing is, Bilal, for now, first let's develop the API and then let's later on think about subscriptions. And
No,
there,
sir. My question is that the endpoint book API is same for all the clients or for different clients?
no, this API will be the same API will be for all the clients. Therefore, we have to enable multi-tenant billing, which Cloud is working on right now. That is the issue, that all customers will be connected to these APIs.
But the problem is that, sir, if a client share with my API with anyone, they can connect with my tenant.
Yes, because right now we are not authorizing or using authentication. Later on, we will learn how to use authentication.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks.
Bilal, whenever it's just a little tip or whatever you said, when we start anything new, we first understand what the ABCD of the steps. Okay, if you want to learn the English, you have to first, what you have to do is you have to know the ABCD, the alphabets of the English, which used to make the other words. So first, what you do is you learn the ABCD. After learning the basics, you will go to the intermediate step. After understanding the intermediate step, you will go to the advanced steps. So it's just a step by step. And in the class, for the student, if there is some question related to the class, try to understand what the class is going to do, because sometimes happen that your answer will automatically be resolved in the end of the lecture. So first, what we are doing is we are saying that what is REST API, how it created, and how we can create on the AWS architecture. So this is the basic steps. Okay. So don't make the things complicated right now. It's good to raise a question, and the question will arise. And there is a lot of questions which will be resolved by the Google itself. So here we are going to
let's move forward. The thing is, these are multi-tenant APIs, and everybody will later on have authentication tokens, but that is a later part. Not in these classes. In the next few classes, authorization will be later on. Let's go move forward. So else.
Okay, now we have just integrate our Lambda with our Lambda integration of the API gateway. Here we have defined the REST API, and in the REST API name, I have defined my REST API name here. Now, here I'm defining my endpoint. Okay. API root. As you see, the definition which is giving is that represent the root source of this API endpoint. Whatever the API is created, at the end point of that API, that what the word should goes, the books goes here. This is our endpoint which we trigger in our Postman. Okay. Now, when we trigger this endpoint, what will happen? Two methods will called on that, the get method and the post method. Okay. In the get method, we are saying that get all the books from our database. And in the post method, we are saying that create a one integration, create one item in our database. This is our booked endpoint will do when we hit it. After that, we are defining another endpoint, which is ID. And this ID, what it will do? It will do three methods. It will get, fetch, delete. In this get method, I will say get one integration. Get one integration means get one specific book from our Lambda on from our database. And in the patch method, we have studied in the last class. We are going to say that update our database, and in our delete, we are deleting this from our database. This is we are defining our endpoints here. Now all the procedure is done right here.
What is Wes, what is this add course option?
Yes, sir. I'm going to explain it. Now we have created our API. We have defined our endpoint. We give our endpoint the name and the REST API name. We have defined our DynamoDB. After that, in the end of all of that, we are defining our export function, which is add course option, which is calling here as you see in the. Now, what does this add cost option do is cross check your request, whether it's coming from the secure protocol network or it's an unsecure network. So it's because it's for the security purpose. It's for the, defend your API from any irresponsive. So the hacker or someone cannot use this request to access your API. It is a default configuration which the AWS will give us. In this, we have defined our integration. We have a status code of 200. If the status goes to 200, means everything goes fine. There's a response parameter. This is the stuff which you do not have to understand in the deep. It just take it like that. It's just for the security purpose, nothing else. We give that template to our REST API. When you have just created all that, now let me show the Lambdas function, what it will going to do. Now, this is our Lambda function for add book. We do the same step. We import the AWS SDK. We import, you have to install it if you want it, because it just gives the primary ID to the database. So it is a UUID. It is a third party if you want to save this. Now, we are calling our table name and we are calling our primary name, which we have just defined in our environment. Here, I am initializing my database from DynamoDB. Now, this is the same handler which we have just seen, but the only difference is that we are checking our event body here. Okay. Now, if in the event body is not true, what will happen? The status code is 400. It will check it and give you the error, invalid request. You are missing the parameter body, whatever. If it passed and everything goes in the right way, now it will give the item. We are defining the item. In this item, we have a type of event.body. If it's object, it will check this. If there is an event body object, and in this event body, it will return our JSON parse. And because in the REST API, we are working with the JSON body. So it will check the JSON body that in our API request, do we have a event body of a JSON or not? If it has then it will go forward and save your data in the const param, table name, and the item. This is the item we have just defined here. And this is the same function which we have just written for our GraphQL APIs too. And this, what he is doing, it's calling a await method. And after that, in the DB, which we have just defined, DynamoDB, it's putting our params from here and giving us the promise. At that promise, check that the request is successful or not. If it's successful, it will give the successful result 200. And if there is an error, it will pass it like that. So it's just the same thing. You have to just check this one and add this, so you can have a JSON body in your event, and it will go same to the other functions, other Lambda functions. So do I have to explain all the functions, or I just move forward?
Yes,
to the
I think I was thinking right now, because some students have just sent me personal messages.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will have to share this, because this is the first time they are developing API so sophisticated, and they want your code.
Mm-hmm.
They want to.
Okay.
So is this a repository? Git repository?
No. Right now, I'm just showing you for my Visual Studio. Later on, I will share the repository to the WhatsApp group, maybe.
No, what you do is basically share the repository to me in the WhatsApp group, and I will share it on the website.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, please go ahead.
So, okay, let me define. There is nothing new. We do the same step. Everything is same. What we do is call the delete method, which AWS give us. Okay, this is happen in the delete. In this delete, there is a primary key which it's taking from the request you have just put on the Postman. So you have to give the key. What does the key do? It it will know on the database what item I should delete. So you have a primary key on your database, and there you have to give the key, so your data will be deleted from there. And in the get book function, nothing new. We are just scanning all the items from our DynamoDB, and we are just giving our result. In our get one book, we have to pass our primary key again, so our database will know about it, and the method will goes change. Okay, the structure will be the same, but the method will be changed. Like here in this, I am getting the and get method. In this get method, it will get you the your desired result, which you have just go through with it. So this is the basic code function. We have just defined the add book, delete book, get all book, and after that get one book. After you complete all this thing, what you have to do is run tsc or run npm run build. After you run this command, something happen like that. It will build all those things and compile all your files by the TypeScript data structure. After that, everything is complete. Just do cdk deploy, and then when you deploy it on you, it will ask you, do you want to deploy it or not? So click on the Y, and your architecture will be deployed. This is the stuff on the architecture side. Let me show you how it looks like on the AWS side. After we have just completed, as Zia just mentioned, we are doing code. We are not doing anything with the UI. Okay, everything we have just described here, our DynamoDB table, our Lambda functions, our REST API calls, it will automatically go and do this stuff for us on the UI basis. Let me show what I'm trying to say. Give me the homework. Just type API gateway here. I think there is some problem with my internet. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, it's just loading right now. I don't know why. Okay, when you type API gateway here, when you type API gateway, you will get the something like that. Click on that, and you will be direct to this page. Now, as you see that there is a one API, which is his simple books. What is simple book? We have defined here in our API, simple book. Okay. Now I want to see what happened in the simple book. So don't just get confused or complicated. It's just a simple interface provided by the AWS. I will let you know what it was doing. And when you just direct to your API link in the simple book, first tab will be selected as a resource. In the resource, this is our endpoint, which is just created. And in this endpoint, we have get and the post. The option is created by the AWS for the testing purpose. Now there is a one more endpoint, which is ID, delete, get, and patch. In this book, what we are going to do is get option post. In the get, AWS will show you what does this get is doing here. This is a graphical interpretation, so you know what gonna happen on the backend side. There is a method request call, the get method. It will go to the integration of request. Okay. After that, it will check that what integration I'm getting from the user. Okay, like add book, create book. What is this? It will match this and go to our desired Lambda function. When the request is successfully made, in the response of the Lambda function, we have the integration response, as you can see that. Okay, and the integration form, and then it will just go to the method response again, and it will show to the client side here and we will get our data from there. Okay. Let me quickly show the DynamoDB too. Now here in the tables, we have two tables, and as you can see, we have book tables, and we go to the book tables, and we have our data. Now we will see, and I will put this data from the Postman too, and it's just for the sake for your understanding. This is what looks like what we have defined here. Okay. So should we go to the move forward to the Postman side to test our API? Hello.
Hello? Yes, we
Yes.
can hear
Can you?
you. Yes.
Yeah. I'm saying that is, should I just go to the Postman to test our API, or do you want to add something?
What we are going to do is slowly revise it again, but first let's go to Postman and see what is the flow.
Okay. After you deploy on your CDK here terminal, you will get your API endpoint. Sorry, your API address. If you didn't go, you will get it. If there is anything that you didn't get from there, you will also get it here. Let me see. Here, this is your API address, which you will trigger on the Postman. You will also get it on the terminal. Okay. Now, let me copy this. Come here. I have just created. So should I just?
And first let's go it.
Yes.
What we'll do is, Oves,
Mhm.
let's start with get all books.
Okay. I have just defined our environment variable here. You can just don't do this if you don't know about it. What you have to do is copy this and paste it like that here. Okay. This and this do the same thing. So I'm just going like that. Let me just do this like that, so it will be better to understand. Now, this is our API which AWS give us. Now I want to trigger the books and show how many books in our database. What we're gonna do is going to hit the books endpoint. Okay. Now send it. Here is the result. Okay. As you can see, I have the same result. The data which I have in my DynamoDB table. Okay. The book ID is automatically defined by the primary key and the UUID, the third-party tool which I have used. After that, what I do, I just do nothing. I just go here and trigger this endpoint, and it gives me back my data.
Now let's go through the flow. When you say send message in Postman, let's first go to Postman again.
Okay.
We are going to learn slowly. There's no hurry.
Mm-hmm.
What we are going to do is we are calling /books, and in the header, are we sending anything special?
No, sir. It's just for the testing purpose. It's just a public API for now.
Okay. We are not sending anything.
No.
Okay. Now, in the response, we get this. Now, let's see. When we call books, it goes to the API gateway.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see where did we define the API gateway in the CDK, the stack.
Okay.
In the CDK stack, I think the first one, you defined a REST API, simple books.
Yeah, here we are creating a GET request. In this GET request, there is a GET all integration. In this GET all integration, there is a Lambda integration. In this Lambda integration, we have our Lambda of GET all Lambda, which we have defined here. Okay. So basically, when we hit the books, it goes to the Lambda and check with the API that it's same or not. After that, it goes to the Lambda and the Lambda invoke, and in the response, it gives you your data from the get all books Lambda.
Let's go it slowly. Let's go back. Let's first see where we defined the API, which was, if you go on line number 98. Line number 98, we said a REST API, we created a REST API. And then we said add a resource, which was 102. And on line number 102, we said resources books. And then say on the get, call get all integration. Now let's look at get all integration.
This is the get all integration, which is coming from here.
Which is basically a wrapper for get all Lambda. Let's go and see get all Lambda. Now, this is the Lambda. Now let's go and see get all books.handler, because this is a connection. See on page line number 30. We are saying the handler is get all handlers.handler. So let's see that. Now, what we did was create a handler, and we said do scan. Where does this DB come from? We said DB is equal to DynamoDB document client. We are defining from the SDK. We defined a client, and in the client, we basically said that scan it. And where did this parameter come from? Parameter is the table name that is coming. Where is it coming from, the table name?
The table name is coming from here, from our environment, which we have just defined here.
Environment, and we said table name is here. Okay. And then we said db.scan params. In the params, we have the table name. And then we say promise. It is an asynchronous request. The response is in the promise. And then we return status code 200. And in the body, we basically, we put a await on the line number 13. So when it was executed, the asynchronous promise was resolved. In the response, we have the items. We basically stringify it and send it back to the server. Am I correct, Wes?
Yes, sir.
And what did we get? Now this response in the Lambda will go to the API gateway. Sorry, it will go to the API integration, and then it will go to the API gateway, and then it will go to the Postman. And let's see what we got in the Postman. And here's the response. These are the books which we have previously entered in the database using the add function. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Anybody? Any questions?
I think everything is clear.
Okay, now let's go, just like we explained, get all books. Let's add a book and then follow the flow.
Okay. Now you have to remember whenever you do new request, you have to remember what method you are using, because in the RESTful API you have to define the method and you have to choose this method, that what I'm going to do with this API. So on the backend side, the backend should know that what I have to do now. For example, the API remains same, but we change our method to post. Here what we are going to do is choosing the get method. Now, because we want to add something to our database, we have changed this to the post, and the remaining things will remain the same. Okay. To define something, we have to go to the body, and in the body, you have to select the row. Now, let's give it the name of Bootcamp 2021. The book author should be says, yeah. And
We can
it's
always, we
and
always
it's
claim I wrote it.
and it's non-fictional. Okay, now we have just created this. What you are going to do is go and send it and check what happened. As you can see, status code 201. That's mean everything is good. Now let me check if it's add on our database or not. Let me call it again. Here. The book is at book name, everything. The ID is generated. Now this is all go to the backend side. It match those parameters and call the post method. And in this post method, the data will be saved on the database. After that, when I click on the get method to get a new request, it goes same and do the same thing and check the Lambda and get the updated response. Now let's see how this happened on the CDK side. First, if I want to add new book, I have to create a Lambda for that. In this Lambda, I say that go to the Lambda folder and go to the add book, and in the add book you have a handler. Okay. Now the Lambda is created. Now I have to add this to our API. I have to give this right. After giving the rights, I come back here and I say that link this Lambda with my API integration, which is the function comes by the API gateway Lambda integration. After this create and those Lambda is linked with each other, what we do is do like that. What I have just explained is that when I hit on that books endpoint, we have to define our method post. Okay, so our backend will know I have to insert a data into the database. After that method, I say there is a create one integration which is coming from here, and whole the procedure will repeat from the add lambda book. And in this, what I'm going to say, check the body. If something is wrong, give the status code 400 and the body should be request. You are missing the parameter body. And after if the successful, write the item, check the object, convert it to the JSON into the body, and in the param, I define the table name, and in the table name, after that, I define the item and change the method to the db.put, and in this db.put, it's putting our data to the database. Everything is clear?
Yes.
Great.
And then we basically sent empty body and sent 201 status code.
Exactly.
Okay. Now let's go to the repository and I will give you access to the repository. I think you are a new faculty member. I'll give you the access to the repository so that you can push the code to the repository. let's see. Let's do it in front of people, everyone, so that they understand. Let's go to the Bootcamp 2021 repository.
Bootcamp 2021. So can you share the link?
Let me see. We are so popular that Google is basically indexing. And what I do is I just type sorry, I should not have said that.
Now I know the secret.
No, because now it is now what we are going to do is, this is the repository. What I am going to do is that everybody should become proficient in what do you call GitHub as well. This is the bootcamp. What we are going to do is, so that everybody has access to that and they know how we are doing it. It's no big deal. It's good stuff, but still, in the beginning, when you don't know the stuff, what we are going to do is, Wes, go into give me your GitHub ID on the WhatsApp.
Okay, sir. So this is my GitHub ID. Is it visible?
No, send me on WhatsApp.
Okay. Give it 2 minutes. So we have to push the code on the repository.
Yes.
Is it like that?
In just a second. We are going to do it slowly because there's no hurry. Because learning is a very slow process. We have to understand that. When I started off teaching, in the beginning, I used to hurry everything up and nobody used to understand anything. Now I'm going in on the repository and basically, let's see. Now, if I go to Bootcamp 2021, what I'll do is basically just a second. I made a mistake. What I'm doing is basically giving you access. All the other teachers have access. You don't have it because you have just joined us. What I did was I went into settings and in managing access, I'm giving you access I've sent you an invite, Uwais.
Okay, sir. Let me check my email.
You go and check your email. Then what you do is basically clone the repository.
Okay, sir. So, sir, is it okay if I share the code after the class so we can continue the class for now?
Yes. What I'm just showing, go to the bootcamp
Mhm.
/code, and we will create a project for directory here. Could you share your screen?
Sir, I didn't receive the invitation.
Okay, we'll do it later on.
Yeah.
The point is share your screen, and so that every student understand where they will find the code.
Let me do. This is the repository I'm sharing to the chat.
And
You can
in the code directory, there will be a directory called project 4 where it will be shared.
Yes. You have to go to the code folder.
And here you will have a project 4 directory,
Yeah, here you will find the code.
which will
Sir,
be posted.
Sir, but the point is that does anyone try to build the project itself or not?
Yes.
Can someone share their experience from our student? Does anyone try to implement or try to develop this?
It's too quick now. They can't do it in 30 minutes. In the beginning, it will take them a whole day.
No, I'm just because you just gave the project last week, so
Yes,
I'm just calculating from that time.
Okay.
Does anyone try to like build itself? Because if someone tried, they must ask the question when the classes is started.
Most probably they did not.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's move to the next part. One last time, just explain project 4 again a little bit.
From the beginning.
And yes, and just get books, and then we'll move to the next segment of the class.
Okay. What we actually do is in the last class, we check and test the REST API which already built this API, and we check all the endpoint from the already built API. In this project 4, we have built our own REST API, and with the same endpoints, we have checked how things work. Okay. So on the CDK side, first what you have to do is you have to architect your folder. So you have as I just explained earlier, let me explain again. You have to do CDK init, choose the language, and choose the TypeScript over there. Okay. After you do this, you have hold the architecture set itself by the CDK. Okay. You have to create the Lambda. Lambda will not be created, by the way. After that, go to the lib file. In the lib file, what you are going to do is import everything like that. The CDK, API gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB. Okay. After you import them, declare your table like that. After declaring your table, specify the Lambda. The specific Lambda, what the Lambda will do on your endpoint. In this Lambda, we have just explained, we are getting all the books. In the second Lambda, we are getting one book, and like that. We add book, update book. So this is all the Lambda which is running. And here we are giving the access to write on the DynamoDB to save our item. If someone doesn't understand everything or want to ask, or you can stop me. I will just explain it again because I'm just going it a little bit speed. We have just discussed it in detail already. Okay, now here I'm integrating my Lambda with our Lambda integration function, which is coming from the API gateway. Okay, after we have defined our REST API. In the REST API, we have defined our REST API name. And after that, we have just defined our endpoint here, that what the book endpoint will do and what if the ID we will give, what that will do. Remember, you have to be so careful defining your methods, because if you want to get something and you are providing the post method, you have an error and you will get confused. So careful on that point. After that, there is a post function. The post function will identify the HTTP request that it's secure or not. It just filter your request. And after that, we have a Lambda folder. In this Lambda, we have all our Lambda. And I will just describe you again the one Lambda again. All the stuff is same. You have to install this AWS SDK. After, if you want to do, you can do it like that. And after that, we have our table name, which is coming from the process.environment table name, which we have just give here like that. And after that, we have a primary key, which is also coming from the process, and the DB. Now here we have initialized our DB instance. And then I'm checking the request, if it's all good or not. After that, if everything is good, take the item, add the event body in the JSON, and go to the param. In the param, I have a table name, I have an item. After that, there is an async function because we call the try catch and with the await function. In the await function, what we do is db.put our params and it returns our promise and it will save your data to the database. This is the same function repeat to all the lambdas, but the one thing is changed is this. This method will be changed and the param will remain safe, and your query and your result will be specified like that. And if anyone has any question, you can please ask me. And if there is no question, please open your mic and communicate with us. It's okay.
Well, the thing is, either these students are too intelligent or they are not understanding anything, but we can only try.
Yeah.
What we are going to do is now move to what we have learned so far. What we have learned so far is that how to basically create a REST API, how to test it, how to call it, and so on. Now, second part is we are going to go to the next step in our repository. What is the next step in the repository?
It's a step 0.
Test 01. Now, what we are doing is step 01. In this step 01, today we are just going to use test a GraphQL API and then test it on Postman. Today's job is, in the next class, Uwais is going to create a GraphQL to-do application, just like this API, which are going to test today. The thing is, let's start with it. Uwais, why don't you, they are suggesting, you can watch the video, that let's now revise the basic thing of GraphQL. First, revise a little bit GraphQL, and then we have already covered GraphQL, but we are going to revise it a little bit. What is a GraphQL schema? What is a GraphQL query? What are the different kind of queries? What are the different kinds of schemas? Just let's revise it and then start testing a server which is created by a third party.
Okay. Basically, what is GraphQL? GraphQL is a language. Okay, a schema definition language, SDL, which help us to communicate our backend. Okay, like we communicate in the RESTful API. This is the query which take our parameters to the backend and say that parameters that here is a here is a CDK definition and give me the result from that. In this, in the previous classes, we have just see that what schema is and schema type is. We have just let me just revise it again. As you can see that your GraphQL server uses a schema to describe the shape of your available data. Okay, just do it like that. You have a client and you have a backend server. How you will communicate with those? Okay, the client use the GraphQL to communicate with our backend. So how it will communicate with this? It will communicate with our schema type, which we have defined, which we have a query, which we have mutations. Okay. So in this query, the client goes to the backend and say that I have a query to get all book. We have defined our query that give us the query. In that query, we have defined that what we want. Okay. That query go to the server side, and in the server, there is a DynamoDB already attached to our server. Okay. So what it do, and there is also a GraphQL server attached to this, which is AppSync. We are providing the API from AppSync. So it will match this query with our schema, which is safe on the AppSync side. Okay, it will match both of them as it is matching on the Lambda function on the GraphQL, on the RESTful API, as you see that. So it match those query with the schema. After when it match, it will give you the result from the DynamoDB, which you have just decided. We will see quickly review what that GraphQL schema type and what is this. Here we are defining a type of book. In this type, we have a title string and there is author. But what is this author is doing? Okay. There is a object called in the GraphQL. So this is an object. This author is coming from here. Okay. And in this author, what we are going to say, there is a name of an author and there is a books. So this will be a nested query in the GraphQL. You will see in the when we do the examples of that. Now in this book, there is an array of book which is returning here. So after we define our books like that, as you can see, this is the book, and I just explained all this field. This is the array which giving us all the book. Now quickly I checked that. Okay, now there is one more thing. There is a scalar type and there is an object type. What is a scalar type? This is the scalar type. We define that, for example, our title. What will the title would be? It will be a string. Okay. What will our ID? It will be integer. It will what is the boolean? It will be true or false. It is all comes in this scalar type. Okay. If there is a word, specific keyword ID with capital, what it will do? It is a unique identifier that often used to refetch an object or as the key of the object. If you want to primary key, give a primary key your database, you will go with the ID. Okay, simple is it's like that. And there is also an object type, which we have just discussed. The author is acting as an object here. Okay, so author will give a list of authors which coming from these types. Now there is a query type. What it say? We have a book, okay, and we have a book type. In this book type, I have ID, title, and book name. In this query, I am saying that when I go to the book, give me the whole array, which I have already defined in the upper query. So it will go give me all books from there. The query is just like the fetching data from your database. And if you want to add something, this is the example. You can see that. What is doing? We define that we have a query, we define the query name, and in this query, we have a books. In this book, return the title here. See the result, the data and the books, and here is the title which GraphQL give us. We will check the example and do it and also test it with the GraphQL. and the Postman. Now there's a type of mutation. Now mutation will do all your interaction with the DynamoDB, whether you want to add something, delete something, update something. If you want to add, delete, and update something, you will go with the mutation type and define your methods there. And if you want to fetch anything, you will go to the query type. And in the mutation, you have to define that what this add book will do. It will take a title. It should be string, a author name. It should be a string also. In that response, what should be given back? Book should be given back. Okay, this is the response which we are defining. After adding all this thing, give us the response, return the response in from the book. So this is just an example, and now we will see how we can do it here. Okay, now
Before we do that, OS,
yes sir.
please stop sharing the screen so that we can just revise the difference between REST and GraphQL APIs.
Okay sir.
Now, the thing is, let's go slowly. What is the difference between a GraphQL API and a REST API? What we have noticed is in REST APIs, every endpoint is different with a different path. You say /books, you say add books. In a REST API, you can do get, you can post. In get, you only get the data. In the post, you send the body. In the body, you send the data and you get a response in the body in a post request. So therefore, there are usually two kinds of in the REST. One is a pure get in which you just get the data in the body. And usually in the get body, you get JSON format of the data. Therefore, the first thing is in REST, different endpoints. Each endpoint can be get, post, patch, or delete or something. What you can do is, now look at the GraphQL APIs. In the GraphQL, there's only single endpoint. In GraphQL, first what you do is basically define a schema. That's the best thing about GraphQL. The major difference between REST and GraphQL is the major functionality that provides is that GraphQL provides a schema where we can exactly define what is your query and what data you receive beforehand. Before making a query, looking at the schema, you can find out. Now in the schema, there are three types of root things. One is the query, root objects. One is the query, and for now, just understand, in the query, it acts just like a get, that you get the data. But it is, in the query is sent in a post. All GraphQL queries are sent in a post. In the body, you send the query, and in the response, you get the data. So therefore, in a query in GraphQL, you send a query and you get a response. There's no effect on the database. There are no changes. You are just getting the data. That is one kind of root object. The other kind of root object is mutation, in which there are some changes being made to the data. So therefore, that's, now let's share the screen and see. Now this is,
Sir, yes, please continue.
this is a Hasura test client. What we are going to do is, there are a number of different things. Let's say, let's find out, just click users. Now, what we are saying is, please, if in the query, let's see, if you send this request, what will happen?
So it adds the ID automatically.
It adds, because empty users doesn't mean anything. You are saying send me the user and only give them ID.
It gives us error right here.
Yes.
Now, because whenever you want to query anything, you
Now,
have
if I
to
want
tell.
also, I want to get the name of the users. How will I do that?
Yes, sir. This is what I'm explaining is you can just do not do it like that. Okay. This is the SDL, the schema service language, which we're gonna use here. Is what we are going to do is we have a user. Now I want ID from the user and name from the user. As you see, when I just check mark on those options, it add automatically like that. Now, what happen if I just run it like that? As you can see this, it gives us the ID and the name. This is what query will do. It will go to the backend and see this that match it with your schema. If there is an ID and name and the structure is same, like we have just defined like that, user ID name, the structure should be like that, okay? Then if those two things are matched, the structure and the schema, it will give our result like that.
Wes, can you also add multiple queries in a single request? Like, for example, can you add to-dos also in this request?
Yes, sure, sir. Now, because the line is, I will limit the user. Now, here we have defined two queries, and what I have just added, I say that in the limit, it's called the variable. In the limit, just give me one result. So as you can see that what it do, it just give us the user only the one result. After that, it give us all the to-dos which it has. This is what query will do.
Okay, can we find out what are the, given a user, what are the to-dos? What is his list? Because it is given separately. We want, from a user perspective, we want to see which user, just show me one user and what are his to-dos.
So what we gonna do is remove this, and here I say give me the to-dos back. Now it asking me what do you want in the to-do. Okay. I want the title and the user of the to-do. Like that.
This user has no to-do.
Yes. And
Let's
just remove
let's
remove the limit.
it's
Yes,
taking time because now it is going to go and check
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the users and all the to-dos for each user.
Because it has a lot of data, I think.
I think put the limit 5 or 10, otherwise it will take too long.
Yeah, we have our result here. As first user have no to-dos, the second user have the to-dos, and it's not giving the title. And after that, there is a user and there is a username, and then the to-do title and the name. What does happen? I'll do it like that.
Now what we are doing is basically testing this GraphQL server. Now let's take these queries and test it
On the
on Postman.
okay, sir. Now what we're gonna do is go back to the Postman, close those things. You have to create a new collection here, and in this collection, create a new request. Now, what I'm going to do is
So first of all,
before
do you have to add any headers, my friend?
yeah. I'm just saying this too. You have to do some little thing too. First, you have to copy this link and paste it like that. So this is your API link. It's considered like that. And after that, you have to give the content type as they are giving in this. The content type should be application.json and the authorization, and the copy this bearer code and go here and paste it like that. So it will give you permission to access those queries because if you didn't do this, you cannot access this on your Postman. After you do all this thing, go to the body and copy this and paste it like that. Let's see what we get. As you can see, we have a similar result. What we have there. To-dos, title, and the title result. To-dos, title, and all the to-dos here.
Let's do some more queries.
These are simple queries. So should we do mutation or other queries or just for the queries related to the to-dos?
Just maybe we can do a mutation also.
Okay. And let me see what it giving us. So we can check. Public, right. Now let's see. There. Actually, this is the way how you will test your API on the Postman. In the last class, we see how we can test the RESTful API on the Postman. Now, in the current class, we are just checking how you can do the
Yes.
GraphQL queries. Yes, sir.
In the last class, in the end of the last class, we were not able to do it. What was the problem? What were we doing wrong?
Well, sir, actually, in the last class, I have defined two authorization headers. So the the Postman is not identifying the authorization header what I have just defined.
Just a mistake, just a minor mistake.
Yeah. So I have to disable that and add it like that.
Okay.
So this is a query example. Let me show you guys how you can update or insert the mutation example. In the mutation example, it was saying that what do you want to add? Should it be public? Let me do yes to. Now, what is the title you want to add? I say that ways to do. After that, what do you want in the written form? I say that give me that the role is affected or not. Okay. Now, do you want to return anything specific? Yeah, I want that the title and the ID, which I have just added to the database. Now see what happened. See the result. If you have a result back from the GraphQL, it means everything goes well. the response should indicate that you, what the result you have just, the value you have just given here, the ID, I want the return ID, and this is the to do which I have just add here. And if you want to see how to work on the GraphQL side, just go it like that. Remember, we are not doing anything post. We are not going to do anything, and we are not going should be just like that, the post method. Now let's see. See the same result we have as here. This is how you can play around and delete
Well, I
invitation.
think West, the ID is different because there are two different requests. No?
Yeah,
Now
but
it is
that's
49889.
yeah,
Previously it
yeah,
was, what was the previous set?
yeah, but the result is same. The structure of the response.
Uh-huh. The
Now,
structure is, of course,
yeah.
the structure is the same.
Now I want to delete this ID. I want to delete this user. What I do? I go here and I call the delete. And in the delete, I say I have an ID which is equal to this. Now I copy this ID, paste it here, and in return I want the user ID. Sorry. In the return I want the title of that user which is deleted. So as you can see that I didn't give a ways to do here. I didn't give this. I just give the ID of this, and what I say that in the return, give me that title which you have just deleted. So I just put it ID like that, and in the return form, it give me the ways to do which is deleted here. This is the same thing will goes.
Perfect, Wes.
If you want to check it like that, it is the same thing. It just I'm just saying that it is not that complicated. What you have to be careful is this, that the link should be there, the header should be, and don't touch the methods. What you have to do is play with this around and the query, and you have the same result which we have right here. So sir, should we, so
No,
is
no.
it enough for the example?
I think it's enough for today. What we have learned today? What we have learned today, we learned how to build a REST API, how to test a REST API, and then we learned how to play and test a GraphQL API. In the next class, Ovaz is going to teach you to build a to-do app with GraphQL, with AppSync and DynamoDB. Exactly this API. And
So should we tell about the test which we have just written, like how if you want to do any test on the GraphQL Postman? Should we do this in this class, or we will
in
do?
the next
We
class,
can do.
I
We
think
can also do.
there's too much stuff today already.
Yeah.
So, okay. Bye-bye, everyone. We are going to go now. And everyone, please go and check out Ovaz's code and try to build a server and a REST server. In the next class, we are going to do project number 5, which is going to be a GraphQL server.
Sir, I
But
want to
before-
talk about something.
Anybody, any questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, I want to say something. Mr. Ovaz speed is too much. Sir, for beginners, it's very difficult to find where they ask the most is in just a second here and there. Sir, we are confused. Sir, and other thing is that, sir, when I'm trying to explore the front-end technologies in your bootcamp 2020, Sir Zishan, you and Sir Daniel will code in front of you, and all the problems occur in front of the student and they solve. Sir, when we taking a lecture from the Mr. Ovaz, I see that I just see the code and expect reading on Stack Overflow. We are just listening the lectures. So, sir, if this is possible, if the Mr. Abbas and other team members will code in the front of student, it should be well.
Yes, Mr. Bilal, the problem is, look at this. We have been at it for 1.5 hours. If we code from zero, it will take 3 classes. Because in Bootcamp 2020, most of the code was UI based and React based. It was very easy. Now we are getting sophisticated and we are building on it. It's not possible to code from zero in a class. Otherwise, it takes too much time. From your perspective, you are getting the code. So therefore, it's because we can only do what is practical. We cannot do what is not practical. Thank you so much, everyone. Talk to you later on. Bye-bye.
Allah Hafiz.